Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and we got another good one for you today. Today, we're actually connecting with a listener. Ray Singer is his name, and he is based out of New Zealand. So what's crazy about this is, one, I interviewed him in the future due to time zones, but Ray is, out there doing it himself. He's teaching himself, and he's going on some pretty crazy adventures. I know that New Zealand is a high on the list for a lot of American hunters, so it's super cool to hear his stories. We actually had little battery issues, so the episode was even cut a little bit short, but I'm sure we'll have Ray back on in the future. So Ray, thank you very much, one, for reaching out to listeners. If you have a good story, be like Ray, reach out to me. I'd love to hear them. And then Ray, of course, for your time, for sharing with us. I really do appreciate it. It was great hearing your stories, and I'm excited to have you back on again in the future. For you listeners, check out the show notes. Check out Ray. Check out what he's doing. He's doing some pretty cool things. Beyond that, guys, make sure you follow us, subscribe to the channel or show or whatever this is. And let's kick this thing off. Let's let Ray tell you some of his stories. Thank you. All right, Ray. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, sir. How are you?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, good, thanks. Yep.
Good, man. Good. You know, Ray, we were chatting a little bit before this. I'm super excited to have you here. You are a couple first. You're the first person technically in the future that I've had on my podcast, because you are tomorrow. For me, it's still today, because you were coming from New Zealand, right? So you're 16 hours ahead of me right now.
Yep, that's right. The world's still going.
Yeah, and you're actually a listener. So I love that, the podcast is getting all the way out to you. And you kind of piqued my interest because you're like, hey, I'd love to tell you some stories. And you're a newer hunter, but I think that you've been going after it harder than most people have. So why don't we do this, Ray? Why don't we let you introduce yourself so the folks know kind of who they're going to hear stories from today, and go a little bit into, I guess, your background is like, what got you started hunting.
Cool. Sounds good. Hey, so I'm Ray, and I'm from New Zealand, as you said, in New Zealand, South Island. I'm a newer hunter. I guess I grew up on a small farm, and when I was about 8 years old, I got my first air rifle. I spent a bit of time shooting slingshots and then air rifles, and I was just so obsessed. I spent so much time just roaming around in the paddocks looking for rabbits unsuccessfully, and I was just so obsessed with it. Spent years doing that, but I had a pretty low-powered air rifle, and I didn't have the skills, so I was pretty unsuccessful. But I just love being out there and getting into that kind of thing. But I didn't really have anyone in my family or around to take it any further, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sounds like my upbringing. I was into the same stuff, had a little air rifle, but I didn't start hunting until I was 30, so it just never had that person to push me along.
Totally. And I think in New Zealand as well, in the sort of 80s and 90s, there wasn't a lot of deer, because there was kind of from the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of aerial culling. They just went absolutely super hard on the deer, and then it went into the live animal recovery. So I guess for your listeners who don't know, New Zealand has quite a few different game animals, and they're all introduced. So they're all, I guess, a lot of them are termed as pests, and other ones are like sort of, there's a grey area whether are they pests or are they resources for people and for hunting, recreation. So
let me ask you this, Ray. Is there nothing that's native to New Zealand that you guys hunt, or are they all sort of, non-native species?
That's right. Yeah. So
that's
all
crazy.
Of the native animals, which are mainly birds, though we have a bat as well, are protected. I think the only one there's a couple that aren't. I don't know a lot about birds and bird hunting.
Okay.
But
no big game.
Shoot ducks. No big game. No.
Interesting. I had no idea.
But we do have a lot of introduced ones. So I've actually got a list here that I can read out to you for people who might
I'd love
be
to hear
interested.
what are the options. Yeah. I know that like New Zealand's one of those like big-eyed for like the American hunter. It's like, oh, you get to hunt Africa or you get to go to like New Zealand. Like those are the two places that people get super excited about. So I know some things. I obviously didn't know that they were not native, but what all can you hunt in New Zealand?
So we've got a whole bunch of different deer. Across the whole country, we've got red deer. They're everywhere. and they've been introduced from different sort of, I guess, bloodlines from Europe. Some of them have got some pretty good genetics. Some of them have got some pretty lousy genetics in terms of heads if you're a trophy hunter. We've got sika deer, which are in the North Island, fallow deer, which are in sort of pockets around the country. We've got rooster deer, which are, again, North Island, and samba deer, which are those massive, big tropical deer, I think. They're also on the North Island. Then we've got wapiti or elk. I can't remember what sort they are. I think they're Roosevelt, but don't quote me on it. They're down in sort of Fiordland, some really intense country down southwestland. Moose were introduced down there as well. Whether or not they're still there, no one really knows.
Interesting.
There's been some random sightings and that sort of thing.
Is it predators that maybe took them out, or is it just the habitat didn't work for moose?
I think it was competition from red deer for the habitat, for the plants and stuff like that. Maybe outcompeted them. We don't have any predators here. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah. We also have white-tailed deer in Stewart Island. We have feral goats. We have feral sheep, pigs. We've got Himalayan tahr in the South Island. And we've got chamois, which is like a mountain antelope from Europe. Yeah, in the South Island as well.
I'm going to have to Google half of these. This is great. I had no idea.
And we've got wallaby in the North and South Island. And they're actually a bit of a, I guess in terms of hunting, they're a bit of a problem because they spread, they're pretty invasive. And I recently went to an area where wallaby are, and there were no deer there, and there was no food. They just eat everything. So if they get into some of the native bush, they're going to cause some serious problem, and it's not good for deer hunters, I guess.
Yeah, interesting.
Means that the deer
I had no idea that all these things. I had heard about people just culling animals in New Zealand and helicopters and just mowing things down and all that, but I didn't realize that they were all non-invasive. I just thought the populations were just out of hand. So
out of hand. We don't have predators, so it's basically up to people to be those predators.
Yeah.
And if the recreational hunters aren't there doing it, then the government or colours have to step in and fly around and shoot them or poison or whatever. Yeah. So
that's interesting.
It's good if people are out there doing it themselves,
Yeah.
And
I went to Molokai recently, which is one of the Hawaiian islands, and they have axis deer there. In fact, I got my axis deer hide back.
I listened to that
minutes
podcast,
ago.
So it's a good one. Yeah.
Literally, this was when I got home to come call with you. This was on the front patio. So it's interesting there because same thing. There's the axis deer have taken over everything. No predators. They've eaten everything up to about like 5 feet high that they could possibly eat. And one of the more interesting things, and I'm curious if it's the same in New Zealand, when we were there, people, we stood out because we're a bunch of tall white guys on a Hawaiian island, and they're like, "What are you doing here, Howley?" And we're like, "Oh, we're hunting." And every person we ran into, from the little old ladies to like the big guys working the gas station, were like, "Oh, kill them all." And then we're like, "Yeah, we're trying. It's hard with a bow." And then they all went, "With a bow, what are you doing? Use a rifle. Shoot as many as you can." Because they all just want them all gone. So is it similar there where, just the people are like, "Yeah, no, get rid of everything if you can"?
I'd say it's a bit of a mix. We've got some people who are, really on board with that. But then you've got other people who are very staunchly anti-guns and that kind of thing and would rather that not be happening. But I don't know what the alternative is, It's
like the government with bigger guns.
Government with bigger guns. I think it's good if people are out there doing it themselves, contributing. Yeah. And you're more invested in the environment when you're part of it,
100%. 100%. How do you guys have like tags, or is it just kind of like in Texas, you just go out and kill whatever you want as far as like hogs and axis deer and things that are invasive?
Same
is it the
basically.
same? Okay.
Yeah. So we've got, I guess, like you guys have with public land, we've got public land here. People call it DOC land or DOC blocks, which is Department of Conservation. Okay. Some of those blocks are open access and some of them are balloted. So with the wapiti in Fiordland, there's a ballot block sort of system.
Okay.
Because they've got there's a pretty cool group down there that are sort of working towards managing the herd down there, as opposed to just trying to wipe them out. they're actually trying to keep them in good shape. And I think they do a bunch of stuff where they cull a bunch of the red deer and take them out for meat, but leave the wapiti.
Interesting.
And only harvest the ones that need to come out. So maybe they don't have the best genetics or whatever.
Yeah, I wonder if that has anything to do with, like, there's some hardcore elk hunters that are like, I need to kill every species all over the world. And there's guys that like they have to kill their Roosevelt. They have to kill their Thule. They have to kill their Rocky Mountain. And then they go to, I think they have elk in Mongolia and they have elk in New Zealand. So like these guys just got to go do it. I'm wondering if that's the reason why they're keeping that herd so strong comparative to other species.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably partly because it's in a specific geographic area, so they can actually manage that. They haven't spread it like the red deer, which are everywhere.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll be for that as well, to try and like preserve that heritage of that of those deer that were brought here and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of crossbreeding here with the red deer and the wapiti. So there's a lot of hybrid animals in the West Coast. And again, that always the bloodline's getting...
Yeah, they're smaller, aren't they? Red deer are a fair amount smaller than the wapiti?
Yeah, apparently. I've never seen a wapiti. But yeah, I mean, to me, red deer are massive, but wapiti must be huge.
Okay, I've never seen a red deer, so maybe that's where I'm wrong here. So okay, yeah. Well, either way, okay, that was very interesting, Ray. But let's go back to your history a little bit. So you obviously have a ton of species to hunt. You didn't.
Yep.
What kind of spurred it?
I guess in the 80s and 90s, recreational hunting for deer was. I mean, there were people doing it, but I think it was a lot harder going because there weren't as many of them around. Mm-hmm. So you didn't really meet a lot of. I'd never met many deer hunters, even though I lived, in farmland, in sort of rural Canterbury. So I just got into other stuff, surfing, music, lots of ocean sort of sports and that sort of thing. Started a clothing business with my wife, which we were very focused on for quite a long time, and then we had the Christchurch earthquakes came along and sort of ended up closed the business down and went back to studying. And when I was studying, I was actually I moved to another city and lived with my mum to reduce costs. And her partner was, he was right into hunting when he was younger, and he had a bunch of like old hunting magazines.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I was just like, I just couldn't believe it, like the adventures and stories, and so that kind of rekindled that flame again.
Yeah,
and I went out.
Were those magazines New Zealand magazines, or were they like American magazines?
New Zealand magazines, yeah.
That's cool. What are the names of some of those magazines? I'd love to Google it and learn.
I don't know what those ones were back then, but we've got a couple now. We've got one called Rod and Rifle, and we've got another one called New Zealand Hunter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll check those out. Okay. Sorry, I keep asking questions. It's very interesting.
Oh, all good. Yeah, there's some great adventures in there. And I guess I'd spent all my life up till that point kind of based around the ocean and doing heaps of adventures on the coast, surfing, wakeboarding, and all sorts of stuff like that. So the mountains were kind of a different thing. I'd done some snowboarding, but never really like overnight in the mountains and longer missions. So that kind of really appealed. So I went through the process of getting firearms license in New Zealand, it's pretty intensive, really, I guess, compared to what I've heard about getting it in some places overseas.
Okay.
You do a bunch of night courses. That was at like the city police station, and then you do a sort of like a written test or a multi-choice test. You have to have a space to lock up your firearms, and that has to be checked by the police. And
interesting.
They also have to come and they like interview you, your partner or someone in your family, as well as like another, I guess, acquaintance or friend, or I think in my case, the neighbors as well.
Okay.
To make sure you're
not too crazy.
It's not too crazy, yeah. Yeah, and make sure that you've got a safe, secure area for the firearm. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went through all that, but still, I didn't really know anyone that was into hunting. Most of my
And
friends
how long ago did you go through all that?
that was like 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Like
Okay.
I was like really keen, but then again, like finished studying, new career, had a child, traveled overseas, all that sort of stuff, and it was always there, but I didn't know anyone that was into hunting because most people I knew were through music, surfing.
Hey hunters, have you ever had one of those stories, the ones that you didn't want to tell, the ones that end in failure? Yeah, I've been there. Actually, you know what? The culprit for me usually is bad optics, or worse, lack of using my optics at all. Picture this. I spot a trophy buck, or an antelope, or an elk, whatever it may be. My heart is racing, but the blurry view, or I just can't quite identify exactly what I'm looking at, it has me second guessing. Well, that's where Vortex Optics comes in. With crystal clear glass and rugged durability, Vortex gives you the confidence to take the shot. Don't let poor optics ruin your story. Make every moment count. Upgrade to Vortex and turn your hunting tales into triumphs. Visit vortexoptics.com today.
Etc.
Gotcha. So, but it's cool that it stuck with you. So, when, I guess I might be jumping ahead in the story, but when did you actually go on your first hunt? Like, how long ago was that?
So, I shot rabbits and stuff as a kid, and then I met this awesome dude called Trev, who's like, I guess he was close to retirement as a farmer, and he worked on managed a huge big station that was like a big sort of high country sheep farm.
Okay.
I actually met him at a dance party. And got yarning about hunting, and he said, well, why don't you come over and I'll take you out. So I was like, sweet. Yeah, we came over with our family after a music event, and we spent like a week with them on the farm, and it was great. And then, one sort of afternoon, before dark, we went out on the quad bikes and went way up the top of this mountain. And he kind of was, I guess I'd never really done like search for big game before, so it was a new thing, like sitting on ridge lines and trying to spot animals and that sort of thing. So
was he the kind of like mentor that was like just taking you up and saying, just sit here, we'll figure it out? Or was he like walking you through why he's doing everything that he was doing?
Yeah, he was walking me through it, the wind, where to look, like that sort of thing. It was strange even just seeing the animals when we did start coming across them and sort of the size of them. It's hard to pick how big they are when you see them from a few hundred meters away, like. Yeah, and then he had a rifle, it was a Remington 7mm08, and I hadn't actually fired it before, but he said it's, super nice rifle to use. He knew that I had done a lot of shooting with the air rifle when I was younger, and we spotted some goats, and we snuck up underneath them, and they were kind of running along a farm track above us. And he gave me the rifle, and he was like, you can have a go if you want. And they kind of stopped, and then when he said that, and then they started running again, and I just lined up on the first one, swung through it, and I'd used air rifles, when I was a kid, and they were always so stiff to pull the trigger.
Oh yeah,
and take the shot. Whereas this was like, it felt like I just had to think about it, and then the goat was falling down the hill.
That's a good thing. If you don't expect the boom, then you're less likely to flinch. So that's awesome.
No flinch or anything. It just fell over and rolled down the hill. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe it. And Trev was like, what are you doing? Don't stop. Because like they're a real problem, the goats on their farm.
That's awesome.
So I was like, oh, okay. So I shot 3 goats, and he was like, You're a good shot. All right, you're
There you
ready
go.
to get a deer.
What distance were they?
They're about 70, 80 meters
Okay,
away.
not too
Yeah,
crazy long. Okay, and
not
how long
crazy
ago
long,
was
but they
this
were
first hunt?
running full blast.
Oh, they were running and you hit them? God, well, that is a good shot.
I was like, wow,
Most
okay.
people would not hit one, let alone three.
Yeah, I didn't even think anything of it. I was like, oh, because I come from trying to shoot birds with the air rifle. I was like, well, this is easy. This thing just shoots. You don't even have to the trigger just goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it was kind of like a magic first sort of experience, and we got the goats and pulled them down to the quad bike and hung them in the chiller and prepped them and had some to eat and got some for the dogs, for the farm dogs. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Good experience.
I gotta ask, just as like someone who didn't do any hunting, kind of similar to me, right? When you what were your thoughts on being able to pull a trigger before you pulled the trigger? And then how'd you feel once you had actually put an animal down? Because like for me, I was like, I'm not really interested in hunting when I first started hunting. I was like, I'm not even sure if I have the fortitude to pull the trigger. It ended up being very easy for me to pull, and then I obviously have a moment afterwards every time I kill anything. But like, what was it for you? And I ask you because I know that this is a relatively fresh memory, right?
Yep. So this first time it happened so fast and so cleanly, and I guess in terms of pulling the trigger, like it felt like all I had to do was think about it and it was done.
Yeah.
There were, I guess, morally, I kind of knew that it was a good thing to do here because the goats are a problem. They're nailing the bush. There's no kind of ethical dilemma there, I guess, apart from wanting to make a clean, ethical kill. And I just had the confidence that I would, and Trev did have that in me as well. So, I guess that was all good. Yeah, I think deer has been a bigger hurdle to overcome than goats.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something about, I don't know, in America, it's like everyone's like, oh, Bambi, like we always have that heartfelt thing versus like if your first hunt is, I don't know, wild hogs and they're destroying the landscape, it's a pretty easy thing to go after. But the deer do, I don't know, they just fall closer to human hearts. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but cool. Yeah. So when was this hunt? So 15 years ago, you got your registration. How long ago was this hunt?
This was probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. And so this was just like a one-off kind of thing. And then the next morning, Trev was like, I'm going to drop you off up the top of this farm. And you just walk along the edge. There's some dock land that runs along the edge of the farm. It's just take your time, sneak down there, and I'll come and pick you up in about 3 or 4 hours and see if you can find a deer. He was like, if you find one, shoot it behind the crease of the shoulder. I was like, okay. And I think he was thinking he's never going to get a deer. So he drove up and dropped me off, and I walked a few hundred meters up the hill and then started coming down. I heard the quad bike disappear back to the farm and turn off. I came around the corner, and there was like a deer standing there like 10 meters away beside this bush with his head behind a tree. And I was like, oh my God, that was pretty, it's a big animal, I'd never seen one. I'd never seen a wild deer before in my life. And there was one so close. And I was like, well, I better not stuff this up. And, my family's pretty keen for some venison. So I kind of was like in disbelief and just did what I thought I needed to do, which was be very quiet, try not to make too much noise with the bolt and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, took the shot. And then, the rifle, I guess, kicked back. I was standing and there was the flash of smoke and the deer wasn't there. I was like, oh, okay.
You're liquefied.
Why are they there? So I, and because I was out there by myself, I was just like, far out, okay. I walked over to the sort of edge of the farm track where the deer was on and looked down into the bush. I couldn't see it, so I crept down there and then found the deer. It was dead and
Oh, there
stuck
you go.
in between some trees.
So it just kind of fell off a ledge. It didn't run off or
Yeah, it
anything.
fell off a ledge, like just down
Okay.
this drop, and probably fell like 10 meters or so and wedged
I was a
itself in
little
these
worried
trees.
that you were too close and missed high, especially with that flinch, and then it just ran off. I know plenty of people that have done exactly that.
Yeah, so it just fell into these trees, and I was standing there, and I didn't have a knife or anything.
Oh no.
No, nothing. Because I think Trev was like, he's never gonna, find a deer. Kind of like, it's gonna be a low percentage. Goats is one thing, but deer are just so switched on to people.
Was it a doe or a buck? And do you use different terms on that?
I guess
deer?
red deer are usually called hinds and stags.
Okay.
I guess a young stag is a spiker when it's just got the single points. Yep, so it was a hind.
Okay.
And I just couldn't believe how big it was. I tried to move it. No.
Right? Massive.
Massive. I was just in disbelief, really. That's mainly what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And it was an absolutely beautiful animal, but I was also like, far out. Okay, what am I going to do with this? I'm going to try and get it out. And I started trying to, because I was like, I better pull it up onto the track so Trev can come and help me with it. And I tried for like an hour trying to move this thing, and I got it out from the trees, and I started pulling it towards the track, and it started rolling down the hill because the hill's so steep.
Oh, no.
And I was just like, far out, this is intense. And I waited and waited and waited because I'm like miles away from the farmhouse. And then I hear the quad bike coming up the track from the other direction.
He's expecting you at the bottom because you were supposed to work your way down.
And he just keeps coming, and he comes almost back to where he dropped me off.
Are you ready to elevate your archery game? Summit Bowstrings delivers premium strings for all archers, crafted with bloodline fiber and BCY material stretched for unmatched consistency. Choose from 3 series: Hunter, Competition, and Summit. Each string is built bison tough with unique techniques for extreme durability and performance. Ideal for both seasoned hunters and target archers. Experienced strings designed to handle any challenge. Visit summitbowstrings.com and use HSP10 for a 10% discount. That's amazing.
And I was sitting there on the side of the track, and he's like, how'd you go? I'm like, got a deer. He was like, what? I was like, I've been waiting for like 3 hours. He was like, because we didn't have a radio or anything. So yeah, that was my first sort of, hunting experience, was those two days.
That's a pretty good start.
And then it was years again until, life worked out that I got into it again.
Okay.
So it was almost like, and I felt it at the time. I was like, this seems like it was too easy. Like, I'm sure it's not that easy when you're doing it yourself, public land, etc. But I was like, it was a great sort of introduction to it. And it was great that Trev had the, I guess, trust in me to do a good job. And yeah, allowed me
That's amazing, man.
Go and do that.
I wish I was that lucky when I started hunting to put down 4 animals in 2 days. That's like everybody's dream. It took me, 3 years to be a part of my first elk harvest, and then really like 8 or 9 before I did one myself. Like, it took a long time, and that's a lot of days. Yeah.
Well, we can go into the public land side of it. That's a whole nother story.
Perfect. Let's do that. But Ray, I'm gonna take a quick pause. I was expecting a package, and of course, it just arrived. So let's talk about your. If you got another story in mind, you can just jump to it, or if you want to talk about your public land hunting, whatever the flow of your hunting life.
So I guess after that hunt, I continued with the water sports theme and got right into wakeboarding and kite surfing pretty hardcore. And I ended up hitting my head a few times and having concussion, and that kind of put everything into a bit of a spin, life and everything.
Did you hit your head on the board, or is it like impact with the water?
On the water.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, I guess you get to certain levels with sports where you've got to push through to learn the next level of tricks. And with wakeboarding and kite surfing, the sort of level I wanted to break through into, which was the more advanced stuff, you're going fast and you're going high, you're spinning really fast. And when you hit the water, I broke a bunch of ribs. They're all splayed out in funny directions. And you're learning a new trick, so it's like you're just going, you're trying to land it, you crash, and you get back up, and you do it again because that's what everyone says you've got to do, and then you do that over and over for a while, and you don't realize that those concussions are stacking up because you're not getting knocked out.
Yeah, you're just feeling loopy for a bit. That's interesting. I've always thought about my specific example would be gymnasts, right? They do that crazy stuff, and I'm like, what the learning curve on that, right? Like, how do you get to do it where you don't make mistakes? How many times you smashing into something? It's same with
with water sports,
just how many times are you going up and trying it and failing before you get it one time, and then you got to go up and fail it another 50 times to get it the second time. There's a lot of tricks hard on the bodies. Yeah,
totally. There were some tricks where, I'd maybe make 1 in 30 attempts. Yeah. And the time that you make it, it feels insane. Like, it just feels so effortless and perfect. Yeah. And but then the other times where you catch an edge and eat it, they're not good. Yeah.
Just going way too fast. Okay, well, I get that. Yeah, okay, so water sports took you back to hunting.
So that was partly like, okay, I need to find some other pursuits that are fun, exciting, are in the outdoors, but aren't punishing my body.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's still a physical challenge. Okay. And at the same sort of time, we, I guess as a family, the cost of living has been increasing. Cost of meat is crazy. It's actually hard to get really good cuts of meat in the shops. They just don't sell the stuff like they used to over here. I don't know why.
That's interesting. So here's a quick question. Do you guys have like the standard stuff that America has, like the beef and the pork and the chicken? Or do you guys... I talked to someone in South Africa, when they have all of these exotic animals, they harvest the animals, and then that's what's in their grocery stores, because they don't have the standard American meats, or I guess first world country
pretty
meats.
Much the same as America in that regard. Okay. Though pretty much all of our meat is how would you say grown not in feedlots. It's just grass fed. Okay. Like the idea of grass-fed was strange to us. It's like, of course they're grass-fed. We've got so much grass.
How else are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yep. So, I kind of had and also my daughter was getting a bit older and keen to be in the outdoors, and we wanted to show her some stuff, which, take her hiking and that sort of thing. And my wife was like, you should get into hunting.
Yeah.
And that was all I needed, really.
Yeah. Just needed that fire to be relit. That's awesome. And how long ago was that? Sorry, I'm trying to time all this out.
Yeah, this was like basically a year and a bit ago. Year and a half ago, say. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. So then it was like, okay, I need to get the gear. So rifle, boots, all this sort of outdoor stuff that I didn't have because I spent all my time in the water.
Okay.
Yep. So, that was a cool process, but we were on a tight budget, so I borrowed a bunch of stuff. I got given a bunch of like secondhand hand-me-downs from friends who were, into tramping and hiking and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I contacted a friend from high school whose dad sorted me out with the rifle that he taught his kids with.
Okay.
So it was an old 308. Over here, suppressors are pretty normal. I think they're maybe a bit harder to get in the States, but over here, suppressors are like Everyone
Yeah.
has a suppressor, basically.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that they were hard to get, and I think they used to be, but for some reason the government has expedited things. I actually just had a gentleman on from Silencer Central, and he says it used to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
6 months to a year to get a silencer. Now they're turning them around in 3 days, apparently.
That's
So
amazing.
it's there's still paperwork and there's fees and all that stuff, but that's pretty normal for even guns. So, but apparently the turnaround has gotten a lot quicker. But yeah, most people don't have them.
Yep.
If I can get a little extra cash, I'll hopefully get one to add to my rifle, which I just showed you there a bit ago.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, over here they're pretty normal. I just love them because they reduce the sound so much.
Yeah.
Which makes it so much better, especially when you're shooting with friends and they like see an animal and take a shot and you're not going, oh, my ears. It's like
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about that so much, which is
Or
a
you
big
to
thing.
take a follow-up shot, right, if you miss a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it stops that recoil being so bad.
Yeah.
Over here, a lot of people shoot over like a dog, use like a big game indicating dog, and dog's hearing gets nailed by gunshots. So
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was curious what you meant when you said shoot over a dog, and you mean literally shooting over a dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Really common here.
So your wife says get back into it. You get
Yep,
all the gear.
And then
Get your 308. What happened next? What was your first adventure? What was your first? I have a feeling this one's not success, but I want to hear what the first one is.
No. It was a success. I actually thought it was a success for the sort of my goals of the trip.
Okay.
I basically listened to like every Remy Warren episode.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I was like, I didn't really know, Trev's back working on the farm, and I didn't really know anyone else who was hard out into hunting. A friend Sam gave me a few tips, and then I just listened to those episodes, and I was like, okay, so I'm gonna have to walk for freaking ages. I'm gonna have to go up really high, and I'm gonna have to come down above the deer and try and find some deer and some valleys. I'd only seen that deer. The one deer that I'd seen in the wild was the one that I shot on that farm, and had come out of the native bush, the dockland. So I was like, my goal was just to see some deer. So I woke up really early in the morning, drove out a couple of hours. This was in the middle of winter, so it was dark till, it didn't start getting light till 7:30 in the morning or so.
Okay.
And I stopped at the base of a mountain, parked up, and walked up this like a track. My goal was to walk up this track to the top of this mountain and then continue on. I'd never even been off a trail in the public land before, so
okay,
that's a new thing. And I got to the track and I was like, "Whoa, there's a lot more snow than I thought there was going to be." I was like, "Okay, that's all right. I've got a walking stick, an old stick that I found in the garden, and had a bunch of warm clothes and went on up this hill. And the snow got deeper and deeper until I was walking through about sort of thigh deep snow at the top." So I hiked up, just absolutely pinning it to get to the top of this hill before it got too light, because everyone was saying, the deer start disappearing off in the mornings. Once the sun's up, they might be basking somewhere in the sun to keep warm out of the snow or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hiked about 1,200 vertical meters. It's like 4,000. I checked it out. It was like 4,000 feet.
That's crazy. That's a good first start. Hope you know what you're going to do if you got an animal up there. But
exactly. So I got up there, and I had to stop a few times on the way because I was hoofing it to get to the top. But I was either too hot, too cold, sweaty, freezing in the wind, or overheating. Yeah, so that was working out that layering kind of thing is something that I really needed to work on. Plus, I guess newly had glasses after the few concussions that I had.
Yeah.
And so my glasses
just
are
fogged.
fogging up.
Yeah.
It's a mission.
Oh, I can see this. I can see it all. Okay.
I kept going through the snow, and we've got these horrible plants over here called Spaniard grass. And this, you look like it's like you're stepping over snow. It's fine. And then you break through, and then your feet go down, and then your thighs get like jabbed by these like razor sharp spikes, and they're like, yeah. These Spaniard grasses are just so nasty. So, anyways, I kept getting spiked by them, but I just kept going. Then I worked out that I could actually jump from one to the other on the grass tops sometimes and not get spiked by them, which was good. Then I sort of thought, okay, I'm going to creep around some rocks and I'm going to start looking for some deer. This is like big open tussock country, not bush. And I started seeing tracks in the snow, and I was like, if I can follow the tracks, I might be able to see where the deer are going. And I found a bunch of tracks. It was like heaps of them going up this valley. It was probably like 800 meters away. I don't know how many yards that is. 1,000 yards or something, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I'll look it up real quick, but keep going.
Somewhere between that. Yeah. And I kept following these tracks until I got to the point where I was like, oh my God, that's where the tracks are coming from. There's a herd of 8 deer just walking up through the snow.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, that's cool. So I just watched them for a bit, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do? I guess I'm going to try and get over to the deer. So I started walking.
Just continue jumping across your grass.
Yes. And as I came around, I came into the north-facing slope, which is, I guess, like your south-facing slope, because we're on the other side of the world. So
that makes sense. So more the barren side.
Yep. No snow there, just big, steep shingle screes. Mountains are up high in the Alps, and there's just shingle screes. So I just started tracking sideways across that. And then the deer, I kept stopping to have a look. Deer haven't seen me. They're still going. And then at some point, because I'm out in the open, the deer see me. And they all group together. They run to the top of the saddle. And all the smaller deer go over the saddle and down the other side and disappear. And this one big deer, like this big hind, female deer, just stays right on the top of the saddle, just staring at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's probably like they have a lead cow, elk, wapiti, have a lead cow that will sometimes do stuff like that, where it's kind of like get the whole herd to safety and then hang out and watch for a second. So that's cool that the stags are doing the same thing. But continue.
The hinds, sorry. Yeah, the female ones. Yep. Yeah, and they did the same thing. She just stood there staring at me for a minute or so. And then once they'd all disappeared, she disappeared. And I went over to try and find where they went. No idea. Like it was, when I got over the other side, it was just all sorts of crazy valleys, ravines, like scrub and Spaniard grass everywhere. It's like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the wind was all just swirling all over the place. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to have any luck down there. So I went back a couple more times, still with no luck in there. And then started looking for other spots after that. But it was a huge success just to see deer on that first trip.
Absolutely. So you climbed up 4,000 feet or however far, 1,200 meters, and you went back multiple times.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know. I was like,
I
didn't know any better. I was like, I've seen deer there. There's deer there. So I'll just try and learn that area a bit more. I still haven't figured that place out. And what
do they say? Ignorance is bliss, right? So
yeah, I just thought that's what you did. You walked 4,000 vertical feet in a morning. After that, I found out. I met a few hunters and stuff, and they were like, "Nah."
Yeah. Did any of them ask you, like, what were you going to do if you killed something that far away? Like, did you bring a knife with you this time at least?
Yes, I did. Okay. I had all the stuff. I'd watched a bunch of videos on like the different butchering techniques and stuff, and I thought, I'll probably do the gutless method for how far I'd walked, and I'd probably, because it was cold, I'd probably look at doing a couple of trips if I needed to.
Yeah.
Then it was like 6 months of missions, like pretty much every Thursday afternoon that I could, I'd start work early, finish work early, and then hit the hills.
Yeah.
And go out for an evening scouting mission, drive for an hour or so, hike for a few hours, walk back in the dark, look for sign, look for animals. I saw plenty of sign, didn't see any. I think I saw one deer in like 6 months.
There we go. That sounds like hunting. Okay, now we're on the right track here. All right.
So it was like a bit of a fluke that I saw them in the first time, and that probably, that kind of like gave me a lot of like drive to just keep pushing. But
yeah,
I guess a lot of the Remy Warren episodes and stuff were all about never giving up and going after it and stuff. It's like cool.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's a big part to winning the hunting equation, right? It's just being in the woods. Like as long as you're out there trying, eventually you'll figure something out. You'll learn a little bit or make less mistakes. Who knows? But it's about being out there. So that's awesome that you're out there. So how many days do you think you went out? It's been a year and a half. How many days hunting have you done in the last year and a half, you think? Ballpark. You don't have to be. This isn't a test.
I had a look at my map at where I'd been, and I worked out that I've been to 30 different blocks in that time. And some of them I've been to multiple times. Okay. And some of them I've been to for multiple days. So maybe 50 days in the field?
50 plus. 50 plus. We'll
50
say.
Plus. A lot.
Okay.
Basically, I've been like, because once I got into it and, started getting into it, doing it myself, I was just like, what have I been doing all my life?
Yeah, I know that feeling. That's 100%. Like I started hunting, I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And only did it because of relatives doing it and they invited me. And now, like, I'm completely addicted to it and it's my personality, right? So people started reaching out to me, asking me hunting tips. And I'm like, you don't want to take tips from me, but I'm happy to tell you whatever I think is the right answer. So, but that's awesome, man.
People asked to come out with me and I'm like, I still haven't quite figured out how to not go so hard and so far.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't really want to put you through the punishment that I put myself through.
I have a couple friends like you that I'm like, slow down. I'm big and slow.
I'm learning to slow down with the glasses and stopping them fogging up, but yeah.
That's too funny. Well, okay, so you've got a lot of days in. Have you, I mean, I don't know if you have another story you want to tell or if I'm just driving this here, but do you have success? Have you seen, outside of just like progress as far as your hunting and your skills, have you seen success actually harvesting something? Imagine this. You're deep in the wilderness. The sun is rising, casting golden light over rugged terrain. Your heart races as you navigate through the backcountry, knowing the perfect shot could come at any moment. This is where memories are made and stories are born. Ultralight rifles are often seen as Mountain West guns, but the Ridgeline FFT from Christensen Arms breaks that mold. This stellar, lightweight rifle is your perfect companion, whether you're in the backcountry or box blind, ensuring you never have to switch between your builds. With its aero-grade carbon fiber barrel and stock, the Ridgeline FFT is incredibly lightweight, yet powerful. Thanks to its innovative side baffle brake, it reduces recoil even on a 5-pound gun shooting magnum calibers. It's like black magic. As a sub-MOA tack driver made in America, the Ridgeline FFT is for those who seek the thrill of the hunt and the joy of storytelling. Picture yourself returning to camp, Ridgeline FFT in hand, ready to share the day's adventures. Head to your local shop, pick one up. You've got to feel this rifle to believe it. Let the Ridgeline FFT be part of your hunting stories and the legacy you pass down.
Yeah, so I kind of switched tact and went back to goats. Okay. And went on a bunch of like goat hunting missions. And the goats live in some pretty steep, gnarly terrain. And I had a bunch of, I guess, failures in that regard. Scary country and poor shots. Realized that I wasn't as good at shooting as I thought I was.
You just can't hit something that's standing still. You need them to run.
Yeah. And so I did a bit of time at a rifle range and getting some ammo that that shot accurately through the rifle and just learning to take my time and put earplugs in so I wasn't flinching,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, that sort of process. And I eventually found success with some goats, and that was like they're, I guess, a good beginner's big game animal in New Zealand because they're out and about all day, as opposed to deer, which we can hunt deer all year round. So deer are pretty stealthy in a lot of places because they get a lot of hunting pressure.
Okay.
They disappear pretty quickly after first light in a lot of places. Whereas goats are out and about, they're making noise and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's smart. Yeah.
But when
you
I
go
got
after
those first
easier
goats,
prey. Yeah.
I actually got 4 goats. When I did eventually find success, I got 4 of them. And
at
I
one
was
time?
Just, at one time.
You're like, well, I did 3 last time. I got to do better than 3. I'll do 4 this time.
Well, I did 4 because my magazine holds 4 rounds.
Okay. Hopefully you weren't far from the truck. How'd you get all that meat back? Or hopefully it was cold enough at least.
It was actually summer, so 6 months of hunting.
Yeah.
Summertime, relatively early in the morning, but it started getting warm. I wasn't close to the truck. I was like a good couple of hours up this very gnarly riverbed in some pretty horrible country.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I did get the goat that I did. I got like 3 young ones that were good for eating, and this one billy goat who's an absolute monster. It's like 29.5-inch horns. So
okay, that seems really big.
Half an inch under trophy size.
Okay,
which was pretty good for my first public land goat.
Yeah, what species are these? These aren't like domesticated goats that just got loose, or are these some
essentially,
kind of?
Yeah.
Okay,
all the goats are in New Zealand essentially. So as big Angora goat, I think.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. So you did pack out all of it, or did you have to leave some behind?
I did actually pack out all of it. Gotcha. I'm just gonna close one of my programs on my computer so I don't run out of battery. So I packed out all of it. I did 2 trips. I ended up getting a hand from a friend who came in and also packed some out. It was hard work and it was very steep, and I was really grateful to have that help.
That's awesome. How many days out on your own outside of that farm did you put in before you had that goat success?
It was like 6 months.
Yeah. So of every Thursday to Sunday, basically.
Every Thursday and almost every weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you were able to go after it that hard. That's one of the best ways to like sharpen that curve. Is just getting out a bunch, and that's the problem with like Western hunting here. I'm in Colorado, right? We have our seasons, and you say you go rifle hunting, they give you 6 days. 7 days, and like that's what you get for the year, right? So I've always wanted to hunt more and more and more, but I have limited seasons, and that's partly besides I just hated the cold weather. Why I switched to archery because I was like, oh, now I have a month, a little bit more time.
Yeah. And I guess outside of that time, can you still get out there in that public land and go scout and just try and get close to animals and that sort of thing?
Yep, absolutely. As long as the wife gives me the time. I got 2 littles, so that's I gotta balance all that stuff. But yeah, you definitely can. And then there's even like the shed hunting seasons, and then turkey and all that stuff. So there's plenty of time to get out there, but it's not like it sounds like in New Zealand.
Not like
here
where it's just open season. Yeah, for sure. And I've been pretty lucky in that my daughter, she just turned 9, she just loves being outdoors, so it's really easy to go. We have a few friends that are like sort of based close to some of the dockland or bordering on it, so we can go stay there for the weekend. I can go out hunting. It's not a big time away from the family, which is cool. And as my daughter's gotten more into it, she's just gotten better and better at being out there. She's kind of almost my good luck charm for going hunting with. We always seem to get something when she comes out. Yeah,
that's awesome. So let me ask you this: so you shot a lot of goats, or at least you've had success with goats. What's your favorite way to cook them? Because I just shot a pronghorn antelope, which is called a pronghorn antelope, but it's actually a pronghorn goat. It's not related to antelopes; it's related to goats. And so I'm curious, like, how should I go about trying to cook that meat up?
I don't know about pronghorn antelope.
But how do you cook goats? I mean, they're the same species, right?
Or same
roughly.
what I found is that the nanny goats, female goats, taste way better than the billy goats. The billy
bet.
goats over here have got like the older ones. I just actually can't eat them. They're too strong tasting for me.
Yeah.
But the younger billies and the nannies taste great. We've done a few different ways of doing it. Just like a slow cook goat curry.
Okay.
Always good. Mincing them and making some goat meatballs. Do you want one real crazy thing?
Yeah.
I had like some goat in the fridge that we'd minced, or I don't know, ground.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I had a few other ingredients, just random bits and pieces and some stuff in the garden. I didn't know how I was going to cook them. I typed into ChatGPT because we use ChatGPT a bit at work because I do software stuff. I was like, I'm just going to try, see what it can do with a recipe. And I was like, here's the ingredients I've got. Give me 5 recipes that I can make with this. And then it just tuned out 5 recipes. One of them was this goat meatball recipe.
Yeah. Any
done
good?
in a sauce. And I just followed what it said, and it was amazing. My wife was like, "Where did you get this recipe from?" I was like, "Wow,
that's too funny." I've used ChatGPT to meal plan, but never to build a recipe. I'm gonna now ask my antelope question to ChatGPT, I guess.
Yeah, see what it says. Say this is what I've got. Yeah, show me what you can do. Yeah,
that's too funny, man. That's too funny. Okay. Well, okay. I took us off topic with the culinary stuff, but Ray, what you got? Any other stories? Any important ones for you that you want to share? I know that your computer's about to die, so I want to end on a good note here and not you just disappearing.
Yeah, I got 26%. We'll keep an eye on it. Yeah, I guess I can skim through a couple and go deep into some of them if we want. That first public land deer, this was a real brutal one. I'd been into the spot. I hadn't had any luck with deer. By sort of late summer, I had started seeing them more. Started getting a bit more honed into that, but I still hadn't found success. They were pretty stealthy animals, and so I thought, right, I'm going to push further than I've been before, and I found a place where I could where it looked promising, and I did essentially a scouting trip one weekend, and I went in for a few days because we were running out of meat with the goats, and we really wanted to get a deer. So I went in one weekend. It was 24-kilometer hike in, which is 14 miles. I went in after work and hiked in the dark after work. I took an extra day off work, went in, and then the next day the wind was howling, and I headed further up this valley, came over this ridge, and I thought, this looks like a sweet spot where, there might be a deer sheltering out of the wind. It was similar. I'd spotted a deer further back in the block on some private land in a similar spot, tucked in this little gut out of the wind, sitting in the sun, eating some grass. And I thought, well, if there was a stag over there in that one, then this one looks like it's going to be similar. I came and looked over the edge, didn't see anything. And then I thought, I'll go one more time. I peered over through the grass and looked down, and there's this little sort of excavated gut where water had been going down. And I looked down, literally right below me was this massive stag, antlers on it. And I was looking on top of him. I was probably 3 meters away. I couldn't believe it. I was just no way. So I was okay, snuck back to my pack that I'd dropped, got my rifle, got it all ready, snuck back over the edge, came over, and I was where has he gone? By then he'd moved over about 20 meters away, and he was feeding across, and he was behind this bush, and I was okay, when he comes out, I'm gonna, pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And he started stepping forwards. His head started coming out, and then I felt the wind just change direction and just blew that direction. He didn't hesitate 1 second. He just
gone.
ran. It's gone. Like I just saw the tail of him just disappearing into the bush. It's like, what a cool encounter. I was just totally
Especially
busy.
being 3 meters. That's like 9 feet. That's so close to a red stag or an elk. That's awesome.
It was so insane. I couldn't believe it. It was
how
really
bad
cool.
was your heart pounding?
Oh, hey, it was amazing. It was such a buzz. And yeah, I went back home, told my wife about it, and I was like, all right, next weekend I'm going after it again, and I'm gonna go try and see if I can find one. If there's deer there, then there's gonna be more. So
yeah,
I went back the next weekend, hiked in the 24 Ks. It was really in similar weather, hot, windy. I hiked in. I got a terrible night's sleep because I was so excited. Woke up at like 3 in the morning or something, sweating because it was like warm northwest wind. It was probably like 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is Fahrenheit.
That's warm. I want to say it's like 70 or 80.
Yeah, 70 maybe. Yep. It was pretty hot. And then got up that morning and was like, right, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I was like, I'm gonna hike to the top of that range, which is 1,200 vertical meters, which is like 4,000 feet. I was like, I'm gonna try and find a stag on the tops. So I came up this hill, and I'm like, it's so steep, and it's it's starting to get light. I'm just using my red head torch, and I come over then I see this ridge with these like sort of island of beech trees, which are like these green evergreen trees with these little leaves and tussocks and stuff. It was just amazing deer country, and I thought, all right, I'm just gonna take it really slow over the edge, and hopefully there's something up here. And as luck would have it, I peeked over the edge, and the stag is coming down. Always a spiker. He comes down. I'm just like, oh my god! And I remember had my friend Sam's voice in my head. Just don't hesitate. Don't muck around like I did with the last stag with my gear and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just slunk down under the ridgeline, popped my rifle up with the bipod that my friend Sam had given me, and he stepped out. I just pulled the trigger, and he did a big kick, fell over down into this shingle scree, and I just couldn't believe it.
That's amazing. That's so great, man. You reminded me of something that I've always told myself, which I didn't think about until you said the second story with the deer. But it's like anytime you leave your weapon somewhere, that's when you're going to see a deer. So no wonder you saw the biggest deer, when your weapon wasn't on you and you had to go back and get it. That's just how hunting works.
Yeah, totally.
But that's awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was such a mix of emotions,
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, how was that pack out? Do you regret going that deep after you shot that red stag all the way in there?
Dude, it was just, and also because it was my first one and I put in so much work, I was like, I'm going to pack out every piece of meat I can. So my pack was just maxed out.
Did you have a good pack with like a frame on it, or are you wearing like a pack with no frame, weight entirely on your shoulders?
It was like a really flimsy frame. So again, at that point, we had like one hiking pack, and it was my wife's one from like 20 years ago, and it was like not good. It was crap.
Yeah,
but
just nothing with a meat shelf on it. Nothing to make that easy.
No.
Okay.
This was like a lightweight hiking pack kind of thing.
Okay.
And so the other thing is I started butchering this deer up on the top, and it's such a beautiful animal. But then as soon as I cut into it, flies just come out of nowhere.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Hundreds of flies. And then after the flies, wasps, like thousands of wasps. And they were all in there and people in New Zealand said, like, you don't get wasps right up in the high alpine stuff, but maybe because it was warm enough, they were right up there, like 1,400 meters sort of thing.
The wasps were eating the deer?
They were like right as I was cutting, I would be like pushing wasps out of the way.
Wow.
They were just like right in there, just like feeding on every bit of meat.
And they're like the stinging wasps, right? The same kind we have here in America?
Like the European stinging wasp, nasty things.
I had no idea that they did that. I've experienced a lot of flies and stuff like that. particularly in like Hawaii, there were a lot of flies because it was nice and warm. In Colorado, most of my hunts, it's been cold enough in the mornings and evenings that you don't have to worry too much about that stuff. But yeah, I've never heard about wasps coming in. Did you get stung?
Yeah. No, they were just there doing that. Like, I was like, well, they're not going after me. They're just like here because of this food. And so I was like, I'm just going to take it carefully and not like annoy them. And they're here, they're just doing their thing, feeding. I mean, they're terrible pests in New Zealand, but
okay, sound like
I can't do anything about that. Yeah. So I just tried to just stay focused. I was like, I'm not giving this meat up just because there's a few wasps. I worked so hard to get to this point. Yeah. And then the pack out, I can probably send you some videos of me recording myself. It was just brutal.
Just vulgarity, swear words the whole way.
It got up to like
never
80 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Ooh,
got up to like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, like 27 degrees. I did jot that down because I was going to mention that. I ran out of water.
Oh, no.
It was it was gnarly. I'm quickly running out of power on my laptop.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Well, we can wrap things up. Unless you got another crazy story you want to mention, we can wrap things up now. And then, Ray, we'll have you back on. 6 more months, you'll have 2 more episodes worth of stories.
Yeah, we didn't get to the hunt with my daughter that I really wanted to get to, but that's all right.
Okay.
We can leave
if you're plugged in, we can tell it real quick.
No, I'm not plugged in. I should have been more prepared with that. But yeah, so yeah, the pack out was intense. But when I got home, it was like a celebration station. Okay. We were just so pumped.
That's amazing.
They have so much meat, and we actually stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning because I hiked out all day. Got it at sunrise. Got home at like 9 p.m. that night. And then we were.
How many trips did you have to go back and forth?
I just did one. I was going to do 2, but I was like, by the time I got down to my tent, I was like, I'm not going to get out of here. I'm not going to be coming back in here. It's just too gnarly.
Yeah. How many pounds or kilograms do you think you had of meat?
Well, I got out 20 kgs of meat boned out.
Okay.
So the pounds, that's like times by 2.2, so 40 something pounds. Plus, I also took the head.
Okay.
Which was ridiculous.
I bet.
And then all my camping stuff and my horribly heavy Weatherby Vanguard 308.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, an elk must be a fair amount larger because 45 pounds is the weight of one front quarter on an elk.
Yes. Yeah. They're like, I guess a big elk can. Oh, my battery's running low. I'm gonna go just head to my desk and plug in.
Okay. All right. But yeah, Ray, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time, waking up early, starting your day, telling some hunting stories, which is a pretty good way to start the day, if you ask me. But thank you for reaching out and listening and all these things, man. I want to have you back on again in the future because, 1, I want to hear the story with your daughter, and then 2, I want to hear what other adventures you have, man. Sound good?
Yeah, man. So keen. Yep.
Perfect. Well, then let's do one final thing. Do you want to share where the people can find you, your Instagram, or do you just want to walk off into the sunset? Up to you.
I guess you can go find me on Instagram.
Okay.
Maybe go to Spoonhead. What is it? I actually just changed it.
I'll link it. I don't know what it is off the top of my head either, but it'll be in the show notes.
Link it to my music one.
Perfect. I think I have that one. So great, man. Well, thank you, Ray. I really do appreciate you. Sorry we killed your battery, but we'll have you back on, I guarantee. So thank you very much for reaching out to me, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. Again, Ray, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. I really do appreciate it. It is a shame that we had a little of those battery problems, but that's okay. We'll have you back on, and I know you've actually been on some adventures and had some success even since we've last recorded, so that's amazing. So thank you again, Ray. I do appreciate you. To you listeners, if you have a story or if you know someone who's got a crazy story, connect me to them. You can reach out to me. You can have them reach out to me. Either way, the other listeners want to hear those stories. Also, make sure you go out there and subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast platform you're using, whether it's YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it is. And then also rate our show if you can, just so more people find us. With more people finding us, of course, more crazy stories start showing up. So thank you guys. I do appreciate you. Now get out there and make some stories of your own. Also, don't forget to vote and take a friend with you on November 4th. Thank you.